Don't you hate it when players think for themselves? Sheesh. Hello everyone, I'm Father Aaron. Welcome to the Dungeon Minister! So, our heroes, Bob Johnny, Fleetwood, Faux-Fire, and Touchberry, they are finally back in Honeywood. After a long time, they went on the road crew guard duty, which led them to the Mummy Caves, and then they got called down to Kilmarnock by the Count, sent down to the Ursines, chased by werewolves into the Coil of Jomhair Caves, out of the caves into Babblebrook, back into the Coil of Jomhair, out to be chased by bounty hunters and soldiers, and now finally home. So, what now? That's what I ask my players. What do you want to do now? One thing they want to do is take stock. They really haven't sat down and sorted through all of the various magic items that they have gotten along the way since they left Honeywood last time. In fact, they're still toting around a potion of gaseous form that they got back at Barble's Tower, along with a wand that they're pretty sure is a wand of Hold Person, but they're not entirely certain. And that's because they've never bothered to ask, like Sulix or anyone else, to identify it for them. Anyhow, they want to go through these magic items, figure out what they are, if they can, and figure out who's carrying them. A quick inventory turns up the potion of gaseous form, 2 wands, one with chains carved on the handle that they think is Hold Person, the other they don't know. Actually, Fleetwood has shot it off twice, used up 2 charges, trying to figure out what it does. Once into an empty cavern, nothing happened. The second time, I can't remember if I mentioned this in the video, the second time he aimed it at the Guardians of the Pool, and they glowed a sort of faint blue. It's a wand of magic detection. It's a simple thing, but they've never bothered to figure it out. And the fact that they glowed, it could be detect evil, detect magic. He wasn't entirely sure. They're pretty sure it's detect magic, but they're not entirely certain. So, potion, 2 wands, there's the flute, the bone pipes that play a song about a treasure, a hidden lost treasure. This one has story hook potential, gobs of story hook potential, so more on that later. It's being carried by Touchberry. The wands are split up. The Hold Person is being carried, and that's what it is being carried by Bob Johnny, the Detect Magic by Fleetwood, and the potion, I guess Fleetwood's carrying it? He's the one who keeps track of these things, at any rate. There is also the Cat's Eye Marble, which Touchberry has, which allows him to see in the dark, or at least to have infravision. And finally, the Scroll of Protection from Undead that the Dungeon Master, very conveniently put in the Tomb of the Mummy, and then the players very conveniently found after defeating all of the undead. Well, more of that to come, because this adventure is a case study in the Dungeon Master thinking that he can predict the players' moves and make a plan for every contingency, and then the players just tossing every last contingency out the window. But we should start at the beginning, and we begin in Honeywood, where the characters have taken a week off, just resting and recuperating. After that week, after their return and talking to the mayor and finding out that he hadn't actually been all that nervous about anything, he does send for them and says, "Look, things here have been pretty good, but there's a small annoyance happening, and it has just, come to roost." The players easily figure it out. The kobolds, who had accosted them in the forest. They have attacked a pair of merchants who were traveling together for safety, but the 2 of them weren't safe enough from a band of kobolds who held them up and stole their merchandise. Their merchandise being salted pork and beef and cloth. A cloth merchant was bringing some goods up. So these things have gone missing, and the mayor is getting complaints from merchants and from townsfolk that the kobolds are getting more bold. So it has to be dealt with, and the heroes of Honeywood are the ones to do it. He calls them to the town hall, and they go and say, well, what's up, Mr. Mayor? And he lays it all out. He says, this is the situation. Can you deal with it? Sure, no problem. Bunch of kobolds? Yeah, we can deal with it. Their big idea is to go out at night with lanterns and just walk back and forth on the road until they get attacked. Well, okay. So that's what they do. They leave Honeywood later that day as night is beginning to fall, and they head into the woods. It takes them about an hour to get to the edge of the woods, maybe a bit longer, and it's well and truly dark by the time they get there. And they find the place where they had been attacked, or held up, mugged, whatever. They find that place, and at first they're just going to stand there, holding a lantern, like someone's going to just come along and attack. I don't know. Anyway, they just stand there waiting. Well, okay. I roll some dice. Right, I'll roll some dice for them and see if we can get this story going. Nothing happens. Okay. Well, let's walk. Let's walk back and forth. This is where the walking back and forth idea comes in. All right, walk back and forth. And I roll. Now I'm rolling more frequently because, of course, they're actually on their way somewhere. They're moving. And eventually, it takes a while, eventually they get into what I have drawn on the map as the red zone. The night that the kobolds attacked them, remember, it was a wandering monster thing. It was just a random roll. So it happened further east than I would ideally place the kobolds. So I decided that night the kobolds were going a little further outside their comfort zone, and they recognized that the people that they mugged were probably able to kill them. And didn't. They're not stupid. They recognized the danger, so they've decided, oh, we're going to stay closer to our home base. Well, where is their home base, you ask? Their home base is in the caves that the adventurers went to for their very first adventure. Those old mead caves, the mead cellars, which had been part of the ancient practice of developing honey mead, honey wine, which is what mead is, mead here in Honeywood. Anyhow, they're back there. They've taken those caves back. And this came from something that I think it was the middle guy said in our last adventure, we should check out those caves again at some point, as they passed them on their way back to Honeywood. They didn't want to do it then, so they kept going, but he had said we should check out those caves. Well, there we are. Anyhow, they're on the road and they're getting close to those caves when they hear rustling in the trees. They stop and ow! Arrow hits Fleetwood right in the shoulder. 5 points of damage. Really gets dinged. Well, weapons are out. Let's go. They start charging into the woods. And ahead of them in the woods, suddenly they hear screaming and yelling in a language that they don't understand, but they recognize as kobold. Screaming and hollering, and several figures running away through the forest. Well, what happened is the kobolds were lying in wait, in ambush, for a rich merchant to come along or something like that, and they saw the adventuring party. One of them jumped the gun and shot, and then the others recognized these are not easy prey. We do not want to tangle with them. And so what the kobolds were saying, although the players don't understand it, what the kobolds were saying is, don't shoot, you fool, you fool. And then they run away. At first, the heroes want to charge through the forest after the kobolds. But the kobolds have a lead on them, and they quickly find that no matter how fast they move, the kobolds are always ahead of them. They're not gaining. Then they come up with a bright idea. We can run faster on the road. So they juke back down to the road and start booking along that. And they can kind of hear the rustling, because the kobolds are not trying to be secretive now. They're just running in fear. They can kind of hear them ahead, but then eventually it dies out. Okay, did they stop running? Are they being sneaky now? Or have they reached their goal? Well, they're not sure, but this area looks familiar. I think the path to those old caves is up ahead. Oh, I'll bet that's where they are. And so they go up to the path that leads off of the road, and sure enough, they find tracks all in the mud and snow here. So off the road they go and up the path. Now, I have to say, at this point, the players are pretty confident. Its kobolds will dispatch them in like 5 minutes, no biggie, let's go take care of it. And so as they approach the caves, and they have their weapons drawn, they're ready for combat, but yeah, they're not too worried. They have told Foefire, check for traps everywhere. Once we get inside, check for traps. Once we get inside. Before they get inside, a hail of arrows comes from above the cave entrance. This cave is in the side of a small hill. It kind of comes down and then cuts off in stone, and the cave is there. But from the top of that, there are arrows streaming down. There are 6 kobold archers hidden in the bushes up above. Well, the bushes do not hide them from infravision. Bob Johnny is far enough away from Foefire, who's got a lantern, because she's the only one who doesn't have infravision now. So he's far enough away that it's not obscured, it's not obstructed, and he can just make out forms behind some of those bushes. Well, that's enough to aim at with magic missile, which is one of his spells for the day. And down goes a kobold. And they're a half hit dice, right? He actually rolls max damage. He rolls a 7 for, he rolls a 6 plus 1. For damage, so it's not a problem. He drops the kobold instantly. Fleetwood, Touchberry, and Foefire all have bows, but they were armed with swords, so it takes them around to switch weapons, during which more arrows come in. Now just 5, not 6, but at any rate, 5 more arrows come in. Foefire is hit, and Touchberry is hit. And this starts a trend that they're going to take a lot of damage here. They return fire, they drop a couple of them, and the kobolds up top run away. Now, as a DM, I assumed once they fought off those kobolds on the top of the cave, they would go into the cave. No. They want to go on top of the little hill and chase them. Well, okay, you're going to have to scrabble up, because this side of the hill is a vertical drop. It's a vertical stone wall. Lots of footholds, though. Lots of handholds. You can get up it. The thief I'm not even going to roll for. She can just scramble up. The rest of you, I'll have you roll a percentage, and I just decided to give them, I think it was a 75% chance that they'd get up. Pretty easy. Pretty easy. Except for the halfling, who rolls like a 97 or something. So I decide the elves scramble up and they get to the top. Obviously, the thief gets to the top. But the halfling, he's too short. He gets up a certain height, but then he can't reach the next handholds. So he's stuck halfway up. And he can't get back down because he can't see where the footholds are behind him, beneath him. So he's stuck right in the middle. And at this point, my middle guy decides that Touchberry is afraid of heights, and he starts screaming and yelling, which is, it's not doing anybody any good. But then Foefire climbs back down and says, "Jump, I'll catch you." No, I'm afraid. Oh, come on now. You're a big, tough warrior. You can... No. He's afraid of heights. Just a little wrinkle he decided to throw in. Eventually, they convince him. He drops down. He's not that high up off the ground. He's maybe 12 feet up. And with Foefire catching him and helping him down, he doesn't get any damage. He doesn't take any damage. He's back on the ground. Okay, now surely they'll go through the cave. Because obviously the kobolds who are up on the top, they've long since escaped. There's no point chasing them now, right? Well, they still want to chase them. Back up the cliff. This time the halfling easily rolls and scampers on up, and they start to pursue is the wrong word. They don't even say they're looking for tracks. They just start walking. Okay. And then they say, ooh, the beetle cave. The first time they were here, they found a cave which empties off on the side of the hill in which there was a giant beetle. It was their first kind of big monster. They fought kobolds and a beetle that time. Well, they've decided that must be where the kobolds have gone in order to get back into the caves. So they'll go that way too. So they scramble down the hill, and on that side it's a gentle slope, so they don't have any problem, and they find the entrance to the cave. It's a bit of hacking through rough underbrush and things like that. This is not a clear area, but they do find it, and in they go. They do notice that outside the cave it seems to be pretty worn and open. Maybe they could take that as a warning. It's been a year since they've been here. Surely some underbrush would have... No, they're not going to take that as a warning. Okay. In they go. The thing is, the kobolds did not come in here. They veered off in the other direction. The characters walk in, and as they enter the cave, they hear a rustling and a scuttling. Something large is moving in here. They turn around and walk out. they don't even bother. They're not going to go in at all. Nope, not going in. We'll go back to the main entrance, thank you. Okay, so they walk around again, cutting their way through some of the dense underbrush, back to the main entrance. All right, in we go. Remember, faux fire, check for traps. And so she does. She checks for traps. The entranceway is a natural cave. You might remember, if you have an extraordinarily good memory, because this was the first adventure. Anyway, the entranceway is a natural cave, so there's not a lot of opportunities for traps, but she does search for them, and I'm rolling, dutifully rolling, even though there's no traps here at all. So she doesn't find any, and they press forward through the broken remains of a secret door into the carved stone passages. Again, faux fire is checking for traps, and she finds one right inside the entrance. First roll where there's a possibility of finding a trap. By gum, the thief finds one. Finds a trap, and I said, what are you going to do? So I'll set it off. I'll make sure it's triggered. She's not sure what it exactly does, but she knows it's something to do with the floor. So she triggers it, and the floor collapses. Now, all that's here is a 10-foot deep pit. There's no poison spikes or any of that. The kobolds haven't been here that long, but they have dug this pit, and what that does is it stops the characters in their tracks. And although there's no mechanism to do any damage to them, there are kobold archers at the end of the hall. Down at the end of the hall, 4 kobold archers peek around the corners and loose arrows, and 3 of them find their mark. This begins a trend of the Dungeon Master rolling ridiculously well. 3 of our heroes, Faux Fire, Touchberry, and Fleetwood, all get hit. The 4th arrow doesn't even come close. It was clattering off the ceiling or something. I think I rolled a 4 for that one. But 3 of them take damage. Now, it's not a lot of damage. It's a 1d6. I think it was a 4, a 3, a 2, something like that. It wasn't huge, but they're taking damage, and they can't go any further forward. Now, they could retreat at this point, but that's not in my player's DNA. They don't want to do that, especially not from kobolds. So now they're trying to work out, how do we get across this pit? How can we get down into it? Yeah, you can get down into it. Can we get back out? Well, Faux Fire probably can. She's a thief. She's got good climbing skills. What about the rest of us? Probably not so much. Well, could she lower a rope? Yeah, there's nothing to tie it to, so she'd have to stand there, bracing herself, hauling you guys up, while she's being shot at by 4 kobolds. This is not good. This is not good. And again, I have to ask why Fleetwood did not simply cast Sleep. He talked about it, he mentioned the possibility, but he didn't do it. He didn't do it. And so the arrows keep coming. Finally, after some silliness, I am playing with a 7-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 12-year-old. And my wife, who doesn't want me to tell her age. But the silliness didn't come from her anyway. Anyhow, after some silliness, they decide that Faux Fire will go down, climb back up, and then lower a rope down for the rest of them to get out of the pit. If they're in the pit, they're at least not in firing range, unless the kobolds run up to the pit and start shooting them that way. Anyway, down they go. And then Faux Fire gets back up. She gets hit again, but does lower the rope and is helping the others up. Finally, they all get up and they take another couple shots. They take down 2 of the kobolds with bow and arrow. They take down a couple of the kobolds, and the others vanish and run away. Now that's ridiculous. They're each down over 10 hit points, and they've only faced like 10 kobolds. They're not having their best game right now. No, and not rolling very well, and really not thinking things through. But we have achieved the other side of the trap. Let's press on. So they do. They run up to the end of that tunnel, and they're at that T intersection, left or right. Now, all of the kobolds had retreated off to the right, so that's the way they go. They go back to having the thief carefully check for traps along the way, which slows their pace way down. They don't get through this passage of the dungeon very quickly at all. They are giving the kobolds lots of time to prepare, and prepare they do. The party gets to the end of this little hallway and turns, and there ahead of them they see what had been the kitchen the first time they came through. It looks like it's still pretty much the kitchen now. Just as they come to the doorway of the room, they can see a door on the corner close. Okay. All right. Now they're nervous. What is this? It's got to be a trap. It's got to be another trap. These kobolds have set another trap. So they have Faux Fire check for traps. She looks for traps. They're certain there's something over the door. They keep saying, there'll be something over the door. It'll be something over the door. And she looks over the door. There's nothing over the door. But she says, guys, have you noticed? The floor is covered in oil. Now, they think it's covered in oil, so they'll step on it and slip and fall. Right? And then the kobolds will jump out and shoot them. Okay. So they say, well, we'll enter the room. We'll just walk real carefully. Okay. Do we slip? No, you don't slip. Okay, why didn't he roll for that? All right. And I say, put your minis where you go. Where are you going to go in the room? Lay your minis down. And they put their minis out on the board. And then I say, the door in the corner opens just a crack, and from it flies a flaming torch. The whole room goes up in flames. Everyone take 4 points of damage from the fire. Oh, that's it. That's it. I'm going to get those little buggers. Fleetwood in particular is very angry, and he wants to just charge through the door after them. The others are getting a little leery of the whole thing, and they also remember that through this door there's a pantry, and then through the pantry is the old beetle cave where they heard the large something moving. But Fleetwood is bent on revenge, so they charge into the pantry. Here, they find barrels and barrels of salted pork and beef, and crates of cloth, piled up high. It's not a very big room. I mean, it's 10 by 30, which is actually pretty big. But anyway, compared to the rest of the dungeon, it's not a large room, but it's stuffed with the merchant's goods. Well, great, we found that. That's at least something. All right, well, where did the kobolds go? They remember there was a secret door in here somewhere, and it is not totally closed. The kobolds who ran through here did so at a good clip and did not close the door entirely behind them, and there's a reason for that. They wanted to boot it through the cave. They didn't want to spend any spare time, and so they were in a bit of a rush. After a slight pause, during which Touchberry eats about half a barrel of salted pork and ends up very, very thirsty, they proceed into the cave. They walk in, ready for anything. Fleetwood leading the way, and with Bob Johnny kind of hanging back, ready to cast a spell of some kind, a web probably, or charm person, and Faux Fire, bow ready, Touchberry all set, in they go. And out of the darkness emerge 3 huge, hulking, hairy spiders. Tarantella spiders. Tarantella spiders are fun. They're in the BECMI and the basic book, and their bite, in addition to doing damage, injects a poison which, unless saved against, causes painful spasms, which make it look like the victim is dancing. And anyone seeing the victim dance also has to take a save, or they start dancing too. So enraptured are they by the spasms.
Nobody puts Dungeon Minister in a corner.
So, 3 huge spiders. First thing that Bob Johnny does is cast Web. Okay, was that well thought out? They are, after all, spiders. Now, my middle guy points out to me that spiders, real-life spiders, have 2 kinds of strands. One sticky, one dry, and they walk on the dry ones and catch things with the sticky ones. But they still kind of know their way around the sticky ones, I think, and so I decide that there's a 50% chance that the creatures are stuck or not. Now, The spread of the creatures means that he can get 2 of them half stuck, which won't entirely hold them, but will hold them for a while if they're stuck. But before we can do any of this, we have to roll initiative. And it was actually an initiative roll. Fofire rolled a 20, plus her dexterity. She's got like a 22. So she actually has the first go, and she fires an arrow and misses horribly. The sight of these spiders has unnerved her. They're enormous, and there's 3 of them, and so she gets a little freaked out and she misses. That's how we explained it. Next in initiative order, because I roll individual initiative when the groups are small enough. Next in order comes Bob Johnny and 2 of the spiders. No kidding, I rolled 17 for 2 of the spiders. And Bob Johnny, I think he rolled a 16, plus he's got a +1 dexterity. I can't remember what it was. Maybe he just rolled the 17. I don't remember. Anyway, there are 3 17s. The other players coming behind, then Touchberry's after that, then another spider, and then Fleetwood at the very end. So here we go. Bob Johnny shoots web, and it captures one of them. I roll for each spider a 50% chance. One of them misses it and does not manage to navigate the stickiness. The other one does. And so one is free to attack right now and does, leaping forward its closest victim, Touchberry. But hit. And roll to save. Now, halflings have easy saving throws. So I'm figuring this is going to be fine. He has to get a 6 or higher, right? What does he roll? A 5. So Touchberry starts dancing. Now, Touchberry is the next person in initiative order, but he's dancing. He can't do anything. He's having too much fun dancing. Actually, it's not fun at all. It's terribly painful, but he's too busy dancing. Next is the other spider who leaps forward for Fleetwood and hits. Oh, Fleetwood, roll your save. Elves have pretty good saves. Not as good as a halfling, though. So what? Oh, of course he missed it. Of course he missed it. Now, Fleetwood starts dancing as well. So we got 2 of our characters painfully dancing and screaming while they do so. It's getting a little unsettling. Anyway, painfully screaming and dancing, and Bob Johnny and Fofire decide, we gotta get out of here. We gotta get out of here. And they grab their companions and drag them out. On their way out, one of the spiders lunges in for another attack and bites at Bob Johnny and hits. Bob Johnny, roll a save. Oh, he does. He rolls a save. He's not affected. They get through the secret door and slam it closed. Now, the next thing I was going to do was have Fofire and Bob Johnny roll saving throws to see if they are enchanted by the dancing and can't help but join in. Well, we never get to that. We never get to that because at this point, Bob Johnny's player, my youngest kid, the 7-year-old, decides he wants a drink of water, and instead of going around the table, he crawls under the table. And while he's down there, for some reason, my middle guy kicks him in the face. Children. These are the perils of playing with kids. The session ends for the day. Now we're left with a question. Will Bob Johnny and Fofire make their saving throws? If they don't, how long will they dance? And what will happen if the kobolds find them that way? Ugh. I bet Mage's Musings players never kick each other in the face. Battle and Barrows players certainly don't kick each other in the face. Dungeon Delver... Well, his players are online. They can't. Maybe. Dance, my spiders!